In the last episode, I named something that a lot of people recognize, but nobody was saying out loud. And I called it Scrum Devolution, the slow, quiet redistribution of the Scrum Master's authority back to the organization, to the tools, and to the systems. That episode hit a nerve. Thousands of views, tons of comments, most of them some version of, I've been feeling this for months and didn't have a word for it. But here's the thing I didn't say in that episode. The Scrum Master isn't the only role being devolved. There's another one, and the people in it think that they're safe because their title has the word product in it. They're not safe. The Scrum Devolution, Part 1, was about facilitation being automated, the retros, the stand-ups, the blockers surfacing themselves through dashboards and robo-agents. Part 2 is about something that was supposed to be immune to that. The product owner role was designed to be the business value role, person who understands what customers need, translates that into work the team can build, and decide what gets built first. That's not process facilitation. That's strategic judgment. At least that's what the Scrum Guide says. But let me describe what I actually see most product owners doing day to day inside large enterprises. And I want you to be honest with yourself about whether this sounds familiar. They write user stories. They groom acceptance criteria. They prioritize a backlog. They sit in refinement and translate what a stakeholder said in a meeting into something a developer can pick up in Jira. That's not strategic judgment. That's translation. That's routing. And the router is about to get replaced by the system it routes through. There's a piece from Outcome Ops that put it bluntly. The professional requirement translator sitting between business and engineering is about to become the most endangered species in corporate America. That's aggressive. But the logic underneath it is hard to argue with. And engineers can ship features in 15 minutes with AI-assisted coding, and they can. I've seen it. I've done it. The human in the middle whose job is to translate what business wants into what engineering builds becomes the single biggest bottleneck to velocity. And not because they're bad at the job, but because the job itself creates latency in a system that's getting faster everywhere else. And the squeeze is coming from both directions. From above, leadership is taking strategy back. Ant Murphy flagged this in early 2026, a measurable increase in senior leadership directly deciding product strategy, not delegating it to the PO. The executive who used to say the PO owns the backlog is now saying, I'll tell you what's on the roadmap. You figure out the tickets. From below, the tools are eating the execution layer. Atlassian Intelligence auto-generates user stories from epics. It flags missing acceptance criteria. It scores backlog items by business value, and that's just Atlassian. Product board Spark AI does prioritization. Linear AI does ticket generation. An app called AI Backlog for Jira won Best Robo App at CodeGist 2025, Atlassian's own developer competition, specifically for automating the work that POs do every single day. One team reported 76 faster backlog refinement with AI tooling. 76%. 76%. If you're a PO and your most visible daily output, the backlog, can be refined 3/4 faster without you, what exactly is the full-time job? That's the squeeze. Strategy goes up, execution goes down. The middle collapses. Who's gaining? So where does the work go? Marty Kagan at SVPG, and if you don't know SVPG, they're probably the most respected voice in product management, published a piece called Lead Engineer as Product Owner. The argument, in high-performing teams, the tech lead is already making most of the product decisions that matter. What's technically feasible, what's architecturally sound, and what could ship this sprint without creating debt. Those are product decisions. They're just being made by someone with an engineering title. Airbnb went further. Brian Chesky eliminated traditional product managers entirely. Designers and engineers own the product. The PM layer got absorbed. Now, you can argue Airbnb is a unique case. Fine. The pattern underneath it isn't unique. Companies are splitting work into two buckets. AI tools handle the execution artifacts, the stories, the criteria, the scoring, and engineers or engineering managers absorb the strategic judgment. The PO middle doesn't get elevated. It gets split and distributed. Sound familiar? That's exactly what happened to the Scrum Master. Different role, same devolution. And here's a signal I think most people are underweighting. There was an unconfirmed rumor in late April, anonymous post on X, that Anthropic in potential talks to acquire Atlassian. Now, I want to be clear, there's no credible sourcing on that. It might be nothing, but the strategic logic is real. Jira is in every enterprise. Confluence is in every enterprise. Rovo is already running Claude-like agent patterns inside the Atlassian stack. If you're an AI company and you want to own the workflow layer, not just the chat interface, but the actual place where work gets planned, tracked, and delivered, the fastest path is to buy the company that already has the footprint. Whether or not that specific deal happens, the direction is clear. AI companies don't just want to answer your questions. They want to own the system your backlog lives in. And when the AI owns the backlog tool, the person whose job was to manage that backlog has a very different value proposition. One of the biggest Agile certification bodies launched a product owner certification with AI in the title in mid-2025. They're also pushing what they call the seventh stance, the orchestrator, which implicitly admits the original 6 stances aren't enough anymore. When a certifying body launches survival training, that's not a growth signal. That's a signal that the ground is shifting under the role they certify. Stanford published a piece in April 2025 called "Is Product Management Dead?" One of the researchers, Anand Subramani, said, AI is like having infinite interns. It gets you to the first 80% quickly. Now think about that. If AI handles the first 80% of PO output, stories, the criteria, the prioritization scoring, is what's left a full-time job? Or is it a hat that someone else wears on Tuesday afternoons? Working across clients in insurance, banking, and pharma, I've seen both kinds of product owners, both as a Scrum Master myself and a technical product owner. There's the PO whose entire daily output is writing JIRA tickets and running refinement. They come in, they translate what the stakeholder said yesterday into stories, they groom the backlog. That PO is doing work that Atlassian Intelligence can already do. Not theoretically, right now, today. Then there's the PO who understands the business domain deeply enough to push back on a stakeholder, who says, you're asking for a feature, but the problem you're actually trying to solve is something else entirely. Someone who knows the regulatory landscape, the competitive dynamics, the customer pain points well enough to challenge assumptions, not just translate them. That second PO is irreplaceable, and not because of the title, because of the judgment. And you can't automate judgment that comes from years of domain immersion. The way that AI is today, with context memory loss and sometimes elucidations, if you don't have that domain immersion, you could really take your product in the wrong direction. The difference isn't certification. It's not seniority. It's whether you understand why something should be built, not just what. So here's what I'd actually tell you to do this week. Whether you're a product owner, a Scrum Master, a release train engineer, project manager, or anyone else inside this shift. First, audit your own output. Look at your last 2 weeks of work. How much of it was structured text, stories, criteria, prioritization lists that an AI tool could generate from a 1-paragraph prompt? If the answer is most of it, that's not a verdict. It's a diagnosis. And it tells you where the automation pressure is pointing. Second, find one decision you made last month that required judgment the tool couldn't have. A stakeholder challenge, a scope trade-off, a "we're building the wrong thing" conversation. If you can't find one, that's your signal. Start creating those moments. Third, build something. Same advice I gave Scrum Masters in part 1, and it applies here too. A JIRA automation that catches incomplete stories before refinement. Now that's not something that's going to solve world hunger, but that's where you start. A dashboard that shows stakeholders where their requests actually sit, and a workflow that eliminates the meeting where you read tickets out loud. The Scrum Devolution hit Scrum Masters first because facilitation was the most visible, most automatable layer. But product owners are next because translation and prioritization, the PO's 2 core outputs, are structured text tasks. AI is very good at structured text. The survival strategy is the same for both roles. Stop being the person the process runs through, and start being the person who built the thing the process runs on. I'm Daniel Liu. This is Career Optional. If part 1 hit a nerve, share part 2 with a product owner or anyone who needs to hear it. Subscribe. We do this every week. And if you want to know where you actually sit in this shift, take the free assessment at agiletactics.ai/assessment. 5 minutes. It'll tell you more than your job title does and exactly what to do next. See you next time.